Don in London, hello. September 28th, nearly the end of this month. My video's all about recovery, from addictions to substance and behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, so a recovering alcoholic, one day at a time. And also a recovering person to do with, I guess, behaviour and attitudes. Type of behaviour, well, wanting to be in the right place with the right people, with the right things, doing the right things, wanting the right things. I guess always wanting to fit in, be a part of and included. And if I bent myself into the shape which you felt was right, and I would be acceptable to you, I'd have a go. And if I couldn't, or if I could, I would either commiserate or celebrate with a drink to take the edge off, or to improve my outlook and attitude with superior feelings at the extremes of happy or sad, love or hate. So life was very black and white. Either I was in or I was out, or either you were in or I thought you ought to be out. And I was pretty much unforgiving of myself, which led to very unforgiving behaviour on my part. So if I thought you did me a harm, or felt it, I don't know what I would do, but I think I would try cut you out somehow, or retaliate in some sort of emotional way. Not physically, that was never my thing. And thank goodness it wasn't. And thank God we don't have a right to bear arms in this country. Because like anybody else, if we have the opportunity, we will probably take it in some way or other. So, recovery one day at a time. After a very long and arduous drinking career, which was with work as well, very, very addicted to trying to do the right thing in work, follow the right career as asked and answered, and pretty successful in most respects, until I realised that whatever dream I was heading towards, or whatever expectations I had, they were never ever going to turn out and make me feel right about me. So life became a bit of a disappointment, and so did I, not only to myself but to other people, and I didn't know how to change to be back to a sober person, I guess. I'm just going to shut my windows. Quite a lot of noise around here this morning. So what happened to me? I lost the plot and I lost the lot, is a good way of describing it. I lost my self-esteem, if I had any, self-respect, and then lost respect for pretty much anything and everything that was going on around me. Nothing meant anything. Nothing, absolutely nothing, seemed to work in my world at all. So rather than accept my lot and say, okay, drink is obviously getting in the way, and these are in the final years of drinking, still in this century, unfortunately, drink was running me rather than me able to run or live my life as best I could. And I didn't understand addiction. I didn't understand what alcoholism was. I didn't know what it was to be addicted to behaviour, other than I was addicted to pretty much anything and everything which I thought or felt could fix me in the next 24 hours or for the rest of my life. When I get to this point in my life, it will look like this. If it gets to that point in my life, I will have done that. And pretty much I was able to do many things and succeed at many things, except one. Probably doing the next right thing for me and for the people around me who I love or loved at the time. Because I was driven to be whatever it was I thought I ought to be at that time. And looking back, I can't even really imagine what I was trying to be, other than not being found out and not feeling like I wasn't good enough. So those feelings today are, I put them, well, they're gone actually. I feel okay this morning. And it's been a bit of a difficult week so far, as have the last fortnight. Problems with slip discs in my back, trapped nerves, leading to a fall and then another fall where I severely sprained my left ankle, which has now got a fairly interesting colour of green and black as the bruises come out. But finally I did do the right thing. I did go to the A&E department, the emergency department, and find out And they said, well, you've done all the right things, and you knew if it had been broken, because you have a past experience of breaking the ankle more than once, then all you can do is rest it and wear an iron boot to get about. But as it turns out, I don't need the iron boot, and I was fairly on the mark that it may have been broken. And they checked all the old breaks as well in the rest of my foot. This is just an aside, but it's important. Many a time before I got to recovery, I broke bones and just kept on going because work was important. A relationship was important. It was important to show no weakness. Brave face, put on brave face, stiff upper lip, and not feel guilty or shameful of having to take time out to let things mend. And that was me, helter-skelter at everything. No breaks, no signs of weakness if I could avoid it, which led to many weaknesses in my understanding about life, or just ignorance of what was good for me and what could be good in my life and my world. And one word I never learned how to use with any great ease was the word no. And as Gandhi said, this is just paraphrased, an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. So if I'd said no to drinking too much, if I'd said no to jobs, careers which I didn't really like but was good at, then life would have turned out quite a lot differently. But now it's turning out differently on a daily basis. So what's the great news about not drinking and not being addicted to certain attitudes and behaviour? Well, I can live life on life's terms. I can say yes to those things which will work out, and sometimes say yes, I'll take a risk, and these things may work out. But it's a calculated risk, rather than running full and headlong into the next right thing as I thought it might be. So, sober one day at a time. Sober, I'm learning a little bit more about who I am. And what's helped me more than anything along the way is fellowship. Never understood that word until it happened to me, and the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Not a cure, but just a way to keep sober one day at a time and find like-minded people who do exactly the same thing. And I had a note on my profile on YouTube this morning which said that AA is a cult and people are full of dogma. Well, that's not true. That's not true. I can say that categorically from my own experience. But if people have a cult to which they belong, and they want to turn AA into a cult in their own mind, they can. And if people in AA have dogma, they have dogma. But that they don't actually impact on me in any way. And the majority, as far as I can see, don't have dogma. They have a sober day. And they don't belong to a cult, because that means you've got to keep on doing the same things over and over again in order to fit in. And the very last thing an alcoholic wants to do is fit in and conform. Alcoholics in active addiction or in recovery appear, in my opinion, to be quite stubborn and defiant and want to do things their own way. And why not? I mean, why shouldn't we do things our own way, as long as we find a way which works without drink and is an open, honest way to live life? What's wrong with that? Well, I'd rather be stubborn and defiant around that. And that's what the fellowship also feels is right as well. And I'll explain why in just a moment. I share something about the steps, the 12-step program of AA, which came out of a lot of study and life experience, not only inside AA but outside it too. And it was the life experience of people coming into recovery when the fellowship was first founded. And on this card it has you can't see it, but it has the 12 steps and 12 traditions of the fellowship. 12 steps, 1 to 12, all about personal recovery, how to be open, honest and willing to live life and make the best of what is and what can be done. living principles, if you like, which enable freedom of choice rather than to be dogmatic and stuck in a cult or just stuck in a rut. So the good news is it's about freedom of choice once you understand what freedom of choice is. And you also have the freedom to go back and drink as well, because nobody's going to stop you. All you need is a free choice without being addicted or beholden to substances and behaviour. And the 12 traditions of the fellowship about unity, service and recovery, about everyone being a trusted servant, and there are no leaders, but there are lots of people with good ideas who put them out there in groups and meetings, and maybe they will be adopted as part of the philosophy of the fellowship. But it's by vote, an anarchic democracy, and it takes time to shift. It's a bit like an ocean liner or an oil tanker in the ocean. If you're trying to turn it some way or other, it requires a great deal of effort and time to do it. So normally good changes happen, which are contrary to dogma and contrary to fastening people down into a way of life which is instructions rather than freedoms. So the ultimate freedom of life is to make a choice right now, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And this idea that you can say no to things applies to things in fellowship. Anyway, I will share the AA preamble, which is on the same card. Share from this book daily reflections, and then a few ideas of my own, which have occurred over the years in recovery, one day at a time. Some days are longer than others. Some days fly by, and you wonder, that was so great, how am I going to do it again? And the answer is, just be a part of life and see if it can happen. But also recognise that it's not a box of chocolates or a bowl of cherries. It's not all good. It's like the curate's egg. When asked, the curate, this is a religious person staying at a person's house, and he was a guest. So the host said, "How's your egg?" And he said, "It's good in parts." In other words, it was completely off. But in fellowship and in life, we find that life is good in parts, and sometimes the not so good parts, or the bad parts, they show us and teach us how to keep a level head under pressure, stress, distress, grief, marriages, birth, marriages and deaths, how to live life and be a part of it and experience it all and get something from it. So we get broader, wider, deeper in our emotional and spiritual condition. Emotional condition is knowing what our feelings are. Spiritual condition, as described by many, I've now found, is the ability to cope with now. And that's a cleric saying that, a very senior cleric in a religious organisation. But I'm not in a religious organisation. But the idea that life is spiritual, all life is spiritual, is just a quality of what it is. We can influence in a good and positive way by how we are as people. So in emotional spiritual well-being, contingent on the day I am aware of myself, my feelings and what's going on around me. And emotional spiritual is the very essence of the 12-step philosophy. Anyway, the AA preamble, as said, in every meeting of AA I attend, and every other fellowship meeting that seems to happen. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it is about unity, service and recovery. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. And if you only have a desire to stop drinking, and I didn't even when I got to AA, it was the very last place I imagined I would end up. But I did get a desire to stop drinking eventually. And there are no rules, laws or regulations in the fellowship. We are all trusted servants of equal size. So no one in the fellowship can actually tell you what to do. They may offer their opinion and their beliefs and share them with you. And if they try and impose them on you, I don't know that you would ever take any notice of them. But what I have found is when people offer me opinion and instruction about my life, I tend to say, bugger off, mind your own business. And that's respecting me and respecting them, because if they get enough bugger offs, mind your own business, maybe they will mind other people's business and get on with their own. So we are human in AA. You will find people who know it all, don't know enough, and know only enough for today, which is me, usually. Or if I don't know enough for today, I find out. And that's how life works for me. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. In other words, if you haven't got any money, or have very small amounts of money, enough to subside on, don't pay anything into the charitable kitty that we have. We are a lean organisation, only having a prudent reserve. So the issue of money never becomes big in anybody's mind. So there are no fees or dues. At the same time, if you can spare a few coppers, no wonder we're still here. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, and that can be by our presence, just being there. That's a contribution in itself, and sharing a bit of experience, strength and hope helps too. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship as a whole is there for one primary purpose, which I'll share in a moment, that every single person in the fellowship has beliefs, attitude, behaviour, connections, affiliations, for and against, beliefs, you name it, culture. Everybody has their background, and we hear about it, but we don't adopt it. We probably adopt what they share about the primary purpose, which is, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And we do that by sharing our experiences, what's working, and what our hopes might be for today, and not too far in the future, because if we have an expectation too far in the future, it's all going to look right when I get to X, Y and Z. And that doesn't happen. Resentments are there, under construction, and resentment and anger are the number one reasons often why people take it out on themselves and need to take the edge off and go back to drinking, even if it's only for a short space of time. Expectations, resentments and anger, justifiable anger, sometimes can tip us back into the malady, the illness again of drinking, and expecting it to change as if by magic, and all we get is a physical hangover and an emotional hangover, because we can go on an emotional binge as much as anything. Why don't they love me? Why won't they do it my way? Why can't I have that job? I don't deserve this. All that stuff can take us right back into the horror and the feelings of not being good enough, and why me, or poor me, and if only. So all those things can get in the way of our sobriety. So living in the day, taking note of our life story and what has happened to us, we can make the best of what is, using these 12 steps. So in that book, Daily Reflections, it covers one step and one tradition per day. So September is all about step 9, and the 9th tradition, which is eluding me, is there in the back of my mind somewhere, but I will check. Why is it? I can almost feel the words in my head. Yeah. AA ought never be organised, but we may have trusted servants working for us. Rather, we may employ people to do the admin, but it's not organised with power bases. It doesn't have a level system where somebody is in charge at the top. Quite the opposite. The most important person who may cover the admin and run the service side of it is a trusted servant of the fellowship, the people in the people in the society. It's not an organisation. So it's society or fellowship, not a conventional organisation. So when people say, I owe my life to AA, I always feel, well, what is AA? Who is AA? What I could say, actually, I owe my life to the experience, strength and hope of those around me here in the room today who are keeping me sober. Because what we are in right now is the fellowship as it is, how it manifests right now. So sobriety is all about being in the moment of now, knowing what's happening, what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent, all those things. And we do that by just simply having our senses work without reservation, without expectations in some way. Because if we have an open mind, we are open, honest and willing to change, then life can change. But if we have a closed mind where we're shut down, we're unwilling, and everything dishonest that comes back, we see dishonesty as well, we can be blown off course unless we have these steps to help us. So the daily reflection for today, step 9, is all about people. Is all about making amends to people we have harmed, except when to do so would cause further harm and aggravation. And simply, sometimes we can't make restitution as we might wish, but there are other ways we do it, by the way we live, and by other means which we discuss with people around us, so that we get back to clean living, if you like, in every respect. But it's progress, and it's never perfect, and we can take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We can have a really bad day when all the old stuff manifests, and then we can have a really good day where everything is just running wonderfully, when we feel happy, or just simply peaceful. So these steps, step 1, powerless over alcohol, and if I drink my life gets unmanageable, not only for me, but also around people, places and things. Step 2, being restored to sanity by a power greater than me. Turned out to be the wisdom of the world and the universe, which I hadn't really plugged into, nor had I been able to stop drinking on my own. For me, step 3, let go and let good things happen. Let go and let the world in. And then step 4, my life story about what worked and what didn't work. Step 5, sharing that with another human being. Step 6, realizing I've got character traits which won't help me, like fear, putting on a brave face, ego to cover up shame and guilt about not being good enough. And then step 7 is about courage, faith and confidence, in the face of adversity often, in the face of not knowing. Courage, faith and confidence to meet and greet the day. And if I'm feeling bad, work on it. Not work on it in the sense of I will change my feelings, because I don't know that we change our feelings just by knowing what they are. We have to do something, and then our feelings change. So it's feelings, thinking, changing. I think it's the order. I feel it's the order actually as well. And then in step 8, making the list of amends and being willing to make them. Having some discussion with another human being or two to find out which amends to make. And that's all the way through to September. So each step covered each month in my videos. But today's reading from the Daily Reflection. Love without strings. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And intensive work is not a burden, actually. It's just part of life after a while. Intensive connection to and involvement with other people in recovery, newcomers and old-timers. So we mix it up in terms of experience, strength and hope. So from one day people, or even an hour, or even not sober yet, through to people with decades, absolute decades. And sometimes you have to winkle out the experience from them because they're tired of sharing it. And of course there are the other people who just want to give you so much information about why your life will work better with their ideas. They're called bleeding deacons, and if there's a name for it, there are plenty of them about. So we have newcomers, old-timers, bleeding deacons, and middle-timers, and just simply learning timers like me. So, love without strings. Sponsorship, this is where we try and help another person. But we're not above them, we're level with them, and we're not on a pedestal, we're on the same piece of ground. Held 2 surprises for me. First, that my sponsees cared about me. What I had thought was gratitude was more like love. They wanted me to be happy, to grow and remain sober. Knowing how they felt kept me from drinking more than once. And this is the admission that we're all an arm's length away from a drink, because it's the most powerful addiction, and it often gives us forgetfulness about what is good for us. And it kept me from drinking more than once. Second, I discovered that I was able to love someone else responsibly, with respectful and genuine concern for that person's growth. Before that time I had thought that my ability to care sincerely about another's well-being had atrophied and gone from lack of use. To learn that I can love without greed or anxiety has been one of the deepest gifts the program has given me. Gratitude for that gift has kept me sober many times. And it's true, because gratitude and feeling happy and joyous and free, as some people say, although that can be a bit of a pain in the neck if you're feeling unhappy, desperately sad about the world and completely pinned down and not able to do anything, not free at all, imprisoned by our own outlook. And believe you me, it happens to me, and I have to watch it because I have clinical depression as well. So I have a routine of asking myself in the morning, and it may seem silly, but it's good for me. How am I feeling? Why? And what can I do? And if I know how I'm feeling, when I wake up, and this morning it was dire, immense pain from all the different ailments at the moment. I could hardly move, and even standing up, the balls of my feet were on fire. Yesterday at the hospital, I know, I do it. He said doing something, just enough to keep mobile, will diminish the atrophy to muscles, which are necessary for walking. I said, yes, I understand that. And he said, you know, if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. It's not only psychotherapy, mind well-being, but also body well-being as well. So why do people have to strive hard with physiotherapy? Because we're having to relearn something, and whilst we know we can do it, then we have to do it. And the same applies to psychotherapy or emotional well-being. If I know what my feelings are, I can take an action which can maybe improve something, or let it go and lose it. So by not drinking, I'm losing a lot, and it creates a great big gap for doing new things. Anyway, my thoughts this morning. Excuse me if I'm leaning back for a moment, my back is killing me. It's not killing me, just bloody hurtful. Yeah. This morning, September 28th. Stop and rewind, please. If only. Can we run that again? What we say can be forgiven, and sometimes even forgotten. But deep wounds the deep wounds that we can feel by using the 12-step program can be healed in us. Not everyone has this capacity, or a fellowship, or a program of understanding, so that they get the healing, and sometimes they just don't want it, because they want to be reminded of just how horrible we are. We do reap what we sow. Best to sow love and tolerance today. And we need to learn love and tolerance for ourselves as much as anybody else, because if we can't do it for ourselves, how can we do it for other people? How can we love and be tolerant of other people when they're great or when they're bloody awful? Tolerance and love is a difficult one. We have to say no, and that's one of the things which I always hear these days about what we can and cannot do. And another thought, anger and expectations are already constructed from the past. So we have anger and expectations from the past, and the 12 steps and the life story help us sort out why it got that way. But today's expectations are resentments in the making. And when we feel we deserve better, or think what have I done to deserve this? Time for a spot check inventory, my side of the street and my attitudes and behaviour. So when I say a spot check inventory, if I'm feeling resentful about something, how dare they? Or, I didn't deserve that. Is it going to happen again? This is where I do my spot check. Did they mean it? Do they know better? Do I remind myself that people are doing the best they can, even when they are horrible? Because that's the best they know at that moment in time. And have I been like that? Have I treated people like that? All those things. Spot check inventory, love people, be loved back, and useful. And sometimes the most useful thing to do is to be tolerant and remove oneself from the firing line. Because we can't change other people, their attitudes and behaviour. We can influence it when they've calmed down maybe, or make it worse. And that's a judgment call in the moment. From previous years, last year, to love, be loved and useful, to cherish ourselves and others without conditions, so it's love without strings, very similar to the daily reflections. I will love myself when I'm sober and therefore be able to love others, ? For me. If I falter and slip, I can stop loving me and stop loving others. No, recovery is tough. The hard path yields the greatest rewards one day at a time. Love for a day. And loving people, even when they're horrible and prickly, if you actually love the person and hate their behaviour, that's where you make the differentiation. I love you, but your behaviour is crap. Or I love you and your behaviour makes me feel awful. You're not undermining the person as they are, or their self-esteem. You're just saying you're behaving like a prick, or a schmuck. September the 28th, again, 2010, to love someone else responsibly requires forgiveness for ourselves and others. And we learn forgiveness because we are the unforgiving. Without forgiveness, nothing can be accomplished. Either we close down or we close down on others. How we cherish and forgive is our responsibility. Treating ourselves and others with indifference and superficiality, we level everything to statistics. And it's like saying, 1% of our army got killed in action last week, rather than naming them and making us responsible for, hang on a minute, they're fighting on our behalf. Or, that's just an extreme example. There are examples in daily life all the time. If I go out today, half the people I will like and half the people I will not like, and then you start working out which half is which. So we reduce them down to statistics, rather than say, I'll see what happens today. And cherish people. Just cherish them. Treat them with respect. Love them unconditionally. Love them until you've got reason not to. Because we won't love everybody in the end. Some people are just unlovable because they don't want to be loved by us. And they'll make themselves scarce very quickly, hopefully. Yes, what is love without strings? First we need to grasp something of what love may be. Love might be difficult to understand when we have felt abandoned and lost, and then we abandoned ourselves in whatever isms we have. So alcoholism, workaholism, relationshipism, being with the right person in the right place, having more than one relationship, all that stuff. My primary addiction, which helped me into recovery, was alcohol. Alcoholism. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and I realised I was codependent on alcohol. In other words, alcohol had power over me in the end. Or alcohol had the power over me, and I always thought it was the other way round. Even one drink in the past would change the way I felt about life, to the good or bad. And in the end, drink gave me oblivion from hell life had become. And I wanted oblivion, and I didn't want to wake up. That was how life was. I would have preferred for well, not many a year, certainly for a few years, not to have woken up at all. And it was odd. I don't know when that began. Anyway, life ain't hell this morning. Fellowship has, and is teaching me about love. How to love and be loved back is difficult. Make no mistake, love is always with us. We need learn how to express love and receive love. Undemanding of others and unconditional. We need accept the capacities of love on offer from others as we do our best. Others are doing their best too. And sometimes love in action is fantastic by us and to us, and indifferent to our impact on others. Oh, yes. And on the other hand, we may take for granted what we can do and behave as we may and be superficial and indifferent to our impact on others. And imagine a newcomer coming into a meeting of the fellowship. And often what happens in meetings or groups local to me is that people know each other well, so they congregate together in groups of affiliation around topics, or just friendship, or sponsors with their sponsees. And then you can see a lonely soul either standing outside smoking a cigarette, wondering what the flipping heck is going on, or you see a person sitting on their own who you don't recognise. So what do? Well, we have a thing called I'm responsible. And don't forget, it's so easy to be indifferent to the newcomer, who may look very ugly, very smelly of alcohol, or just very smelly because they've been living on the streets for a long time. And there is this pledge we all have. I'm responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I'm responsible. And in meetings we normally have greeters who get into little groups of friendships too, and ignore people coming into meetings, or ignore the person who's almost walking away. I'm responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there. And if I'm greeting and I can see it, maybe I can do something about it. But I'm also responsible for knowing that maybe somebody else might be the best person to talk to them. So if it's a bright young thing, male or female, find a bright young thing, male or female, for them to talk to. Or if it's an old man like me, maybe I am the best person. But normally what I do is go, hello, how are you? My name is, and take it from there and see what comes out of them. And then try and find somebody who may come and talk to this person. You may find that they have a similar outlook to you. So we try and help as best we can, but sometimes we know we're absolutely the wrong person because, for whatever reason, I'm a man. Might not be appropriate for a female, quite rightly. And simply, if it's a woman, find a woman to help. You know, work it that way. Work what seems to be obvious. But obviously, it's better to make connection with similarities. Gender being one of them, or whatever it is, we work it out as we go. We're not perfect, we don't know until we ask. And sometimes in asking we can be just as, we don't know, but the pledge is there. I am responsible, without strings, unconditional love and understanding. Yes, fellowship has and is teaching me all about love. Yeah. As we may and be superficial and indifferent to our impact on others, hence the pledge. We behave as if love is guaranteed, and we need not develop or cherish and foster love by our actions. So we can be superficial and indifferent, or say, well, I had it hard when I came in, I'm not going to make the effort. But somebody did make the effort, otherwise how on earth would we have stayed? Love in action, as we come to understand, as we learn, and not as a theory without any foundation. So we have to learn it, to love, be loved and useful, as we find out by living life. Deeper, broader, wider experiences. Love in friendship, love in fellowship, love of a partner, love of life are contingent on learning how to love. So often we had learned the opposite, how to be aloof, let go of others and abandon them before they abandon us. My background is rife with abandonment, and it has taken a while to realise the true impact this had on me and my life today. I am still a learner and will be always. Step 9, sometimes the culmination of making amends for old times and old attitudes and behaviour, helps us see how new attitudes and behaviour help us understand how to live well and keep sober today. Step 10 and 11 and 12, the keys to the kingdom, are all for me a normal hectic life extraordinary because I keep making mistakes and learning from them. And the ultimate is humility, to keep on learning. Humility, a keystone if you like. In life we make mistakes, feel the heat of them, and if we are open, honest and willing, we learn more as we go along. Say, oh, that stung. Well, that was painful learning. Not the same mistakes too many times as in the past. We make a fresh mistake, if we are lucky, every day for the rest of our lives. A fresh mistake is misunderstanding, not understanding, not knowing. And if anybody says, by this time in your life you ought to know this, I say, well, I haven't had that experience of life. It's about time I learned. Mistakes, in other words, I need to retake that. Mistakes is our natural state of living. Out of misunderstanding we learn. When we miss the point, we ask. If we feel the pain, we need to examine why. Step 10, the spot inventory, reveals most often what has happened. More is revealed. Gratitude for knowing and responding becomes our daily life. Or it becomes our daily strife, depending on how hard and difficult it might be. Those are my thoughts on this day, previous years and today, and the daily reflections. Steps in action. Next step, rest my back. Next action, look at my foot and how dark it is. Wiggle it a bit. Use my Pilates bands, which I bought for this purpose when I broke my foot last time, to just gently ease the muscles so they don't get stuck. And emotionally, ease my emotional head as well, so it doesn't get stuck in thinking, oh no, here we go again, another few weeks of irritation. No, it's pain mainly, which pulls me down emotionally. And if I said it didn't pull me down, because I know, I would be misinforming me and you. So part of what happens with physical pain or ongoing chronic conditions like I have is that they can cause depression. So when I ask myself, how am I feeling, why, what can I do? If I feel depressed and stop and isolate, it would probably get worse or get stuck. If I do a simple action, one simple action, which means movement of my physical to improve the physical, it can help me improve my outlook that I am doing something useful. And then my self-esteem doesn't go into free fall and a horror beyond belief, which is the black pit of clinical depression, which happens anyway, but at least it doesn't get prolonged beyond where it need be. So we all go through cycles of emotional and spiritual well-being and not so well-being. But what helps in every moment, as I come on to October, the spot check inventory, starting with how am I feeling, why, and what can I do? How are we feeling, what can we do? How are we feeling, why, and what can we do is the empathy bit. The serenity prayer helps in that process. Can do, change me and my attitudes, or change my attitudes and behaviour, normally by actions, doing something, not faking it to make it. That is a tragedy, faking it to make it. Taking action is not faking it. Taking action is taking action. So, can do, can't do. I can't change you, your attitudes and behaviour. I can't impose me on you. But maybe influence to the positive, hopefully, by sharing experience, strength and hope. And then I keep on learning the wisdom of this daily. So, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. And when it's getting difficult, spot check. What am I doing? What are they doing? What's going to make the difference? I can change me and my attitudes, maybe influence a bit, but just stand, take a stand for who I am. But that doesn't mean I have to change anything else. My freedom is to engage or not engage, stay in, move along, let go, all those things. And it becomes almost like second nature. So I'm not looking at the steps. Okay, what step applies here or there or whatever. The steps become life principles: open, honest and willing, truth, love, wisdom. That's what works for me. So truth, love and wisdom is my high power. The absolute truth, how to love, be loved back, and the wisdom of the world and the people in it, and being open to it rather than closed down. That's my God, if you like. God in the moment of now. Based on how I feel, what's happening, and understanding how to cope in the moment of now. Spiritual. So it all works as you work it out for yourself. So it works if you work it, but you have to work out how it will work for you. And that's the beauty of the STEP program. That's the beauty of fellowship. Criticise not one bit, learn from other people. But we won't switch judgment off completely, because we like our defects of character. Oh, he's having a hard time, or she's not too well. All those things happen. But then if we get to a genuine understanding that love people as they are, ask if you can help. And sometimes the answer is no, fuck off, which has happened to me many times. Or yes, please just listen to what I've got to say. Give them a cup of tea. Actually, the no, get lost ones are less than often, if the approach is right. And you don't know what that approach is until you start to learn about it. The serenity prayer for me: God, truth, love and wisdom. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference in the moment and just for today.